In shadow's embrace. In the quiet corners of closed eyes, where darkness mingles with despise, reflections warp, doppelgängers arise, whispers of a truth wrapped in lies. Eleanor's once vibrant eyes had now dimmed to a lackluster grey, almost mirroring the cloudy autumn sky outside. They say that the eyes are the windows to the soul, and hers were drawn curtains, concealing a horror I could scarcely imagine. We sat on opposite ends of the room one evening, a record player humming softly in the background. I watched as Eleanor slowly closed her eyes, perhaps lost in the gentle cadence of the music. But then a sudden change, her face contorted in a mixture of confusion and fear. Whispsums, murmur me, rst-sm. Soft, eerie sounds, seemingly emanating from nowhere, yet palpably close. Her eyes shot open, panic evident. "Did you hear that?" she whispered hoarsely, eyes darting. I frowned. "Hear what, Ellie?" When I closed my eyes, she began shackily, I saw figures, not quite real. Their skin was a sickly pallor, eyes deep and empty, like endless voids, and their mouths were moving in a silent, unnerving chant. Their noises, whispers, murmurs, rustling, as if they were shuffling just out of sight. Her description hung heavily in the room, an oppressive atmosphere settling around us. I tried to brush it off, thinking it was a product of an overactive imagination, but Eleanor's terror was palpable, and it would prove to be only the beginning. From then on, her once whimsical tales of imaginative visions turned dark. "They're here again," she'd murmur, voice quivering. Avoiding sleep became a routine, as did her growing aversion to mirrors and reflections. Dark circles shadowed Eleanor's once joy-filled eyes, a testament to countless sleepless nights and a soul under siege. To her, they were always there. Those sinister figures lurking just behind her eyelids, always accompanied by that haunting chorus of whispers and rustles. When we were younger, she'd often joke about the wild visions she'd have at night. Fantasies of far-off worlds, encounters with magical beings. But ever since she saw the figures, the tales took a dark turn. "They're here again," she'd murmur, voice quivering. Yet, I never truly understood the depth of her torment. Her sleepless nights transformed into long, languid days. She avoided mirrors, shuddered at the glimpse of her reflection in water. She said they were there, doppelgängers, distorted versions of herself, lurking in the shadows of her closed eyes. Humming a tune both familiar, yet so foreign, a melody that tugged at the strings of madness. As Eleanor's condition worsened, the apartment we shared seemed to absorb her torment, the walls echoing with her soft cries and whispers. Yet amidst the pain, there were brief respites. I would sometimes catch a trace of the old Eleanor, her laughter piercing the gloom. Those fleeting moments of shared jokes and tales of yesteryears became my lifeline, a desperate grasp at the sister I once knew. But as time wore on, even these intervals of shared joy grew rarer, replaced by an enveloping, tense silence. One evening, after a particularly trying day, we sat across from each other at the dining table. The dim yellow light cast long shadows, making the room feel both intimate and foreboding. "Ella," Eleanor's voice, barely above a whisper, broke the quiet. "Do you see them?" I followed her gaze to the empty chair beside me. "Who, Ellie?" She leaned forward, her face pale, her eyes wide with terror. "Them, the other me's. They're mocking me, laughing at my every move. There's one right next to you." I felt a cold shiver run down my spine, the weight of her delusion pressing down on the room. "Ellie, there's no one there," I whispered, reaching out to hold her hand. But she recoiled, her gaze darting around the room as if surrounded. "They're everywhere. Why can't you see them?" Eleanor's behaviour became increasingly erratic. Some nights, she'd wander aimlessly around our home, muttering to herself. Others, she'd stand still in a corner humming that eerie tune, her eyes fixed on some unseen presence. The breaking point came unexpectedly on a rain-soaked evening. I had returned home, soaked to the bone, to find the living room in disarray. Furniture overturned, curtains torn, and in the midst of it all stood Eleanor, wild-eyed, clutching a shard of broken mirror, blood dripping from a gash in her hand. "They won't leave, Ella," she screamed, voice shrill, teeth bared in a grotesque smile. "They're in the walls, in the mirrors, in the shadows, and now they're inside me." She began laughing, a cacophony of manic glee and desperation, as she moved the shard towards her own reflection in the larger wall mirror. I lunged at her, wrestling the shard away, both of us collapsing on the floor, tears mingling with the rainwater. I cradled her as she sobbed uncontrollably. "I just want them to leave, Ella. I want to be me again." The memory of that night haunts me. A night when I came face to face with the depth of Eleanor's torment, a torment that eventually consumed her very being. And so, even now, in the quiet moments amidst the heart-wrenching hums and the tricks our minds play, I can't shake the feeling of those unseen eyes, forever watching, forever waiting. And the chilling realization that perhaps Eleanor wasn't as alone as I'd believed. This realization wasn't lost on Eleanor either. Desperate to find answers, to perhaps claw back some semblance of normalcy, Eleanor sought help. She consulted therapists, spiritualists, even shamans. One psychologist theorized her visions were manifestations of repressed guilt and self-loathing. Another said they were subconscious fears of identity loss. But theories did nothing to stem the tide of those unsettling eyes that haunted her. Over time, she began to question reality itself. "What if I'm one of them?" she once whispered, voice laced with despair. "What if the Eleanor you know is just a shadow of the real one?" I felt a lump form in my throat, the weight of her words pressing down on my chest. I tried to speak, to reassure her, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, memories of our shared childhood, of happier days, came flooding back. The laughter, the adventures, the promises to always have each other's backs. Tears blurred my vision as I reached out, trying to hold on to the sister I once knew. "Ellie," I choked out, my voice barely above a whisper, tears streaming down my face. "I see you. I've always seen the real you." But even as I said it, I wondered if the Eleanor I remembered still existed, or if she had been lost to the shadows forever. My tears dried, but the pain remained. Despite the growing chasm between us, I tried my best to tether her to reality, recalling shared memories, singing lullabies from our childhood. But the harder I tried, the deeper she seemed to slip into the abyss. As the sun rose and set, days morphed into lengthy weeks, and her moments of clarity grew rarer, her gaze more distant. And then, one foggy morning, it was as if a switch had been flipped. She was there, yet not truly. Physically present, but Eleanor, the playful, lively sister I'd grown up with, was gone, replaced by an empty husk. The transformation became even more pronounced. She'd sit by the window, humming that eerie tune. I'd watch her, tears streaming down my face, mourning the loss of my sister to a torment I could neither see nor understand. People often asked me what happened to Eleanor, and I found myself trapped in a never-ending loop of explanations, each more unsatisfactory than the last. But deep down, I knew. She'd been consumed by the shadows, the reflections of herself that she couldn't escape. Yet sometimes, in the still of the night, when the world is hushed and shadows play tricks on the mind, I'd close my eyes and hear it, the faintest hint of a haunting hum and a chilling sensation that I, too, am not alone. In the haunting realm of opened eyes, where reality and nightmare ties, lost in shadows, truth belies, echoes of silent, endless cries.